Christo Caedes took his time walking home, the bike track from school leading him on a direct path through the city. Old silos covered in graffiti littered the sides, remnants of a time when the track was for trains. The path mostly consisted of towering dark brick buildings. Any windows offered were boarded or very high. You could really feel alone venturing down these paths, which is just how Christo liked it. Somewhere to feel your thoughts, his own space to enjoy the music he liked. It wasn't that he couldn't at home, it just wasn't his at home. A kookaburra's cackling brought Christo's attention back to reality. The remains of Katrina are just past this concrete bridge, ascertained Christo, gathering his bearings. Not so long ago, Christo would have been on high alert in this neck of the path. Christo gripped the knife in his pocket, unconsciously checking its release, freeing it, readying the knife. How times changed, Christo smiled to himself. Upon reaching the bridge, the young boy catapulted himself up the dirt path, climbing over the rail. The remains of the convict prison spread out to the right side of the bridge. Giant concrete stone blocks were crumbling with age and neglect. Ray and Ben, a couple of drug-addled nomads, used to use the prison as a hangout. They would yell abuse at Christo. Sometimes they'd throw bottles at him. Christo stuck up for himself once, when they tried to rob him. It's not as if he really fought back. Ray had asked him for money, then started giving him a hard time, demanding it. Christo had never carried money. Ben had decided to collect by taking his iPod instead. Being the young boy's prized possession though, he'd hung on to it. The two bullies had laughed at him then, almost madly. Ray had waved a jagged broken bottle. Then out of nowhere Ben stabbed him in the shoulder with his used syringe. It is a very odd feeling to be stabbed by a needle. Your body, as you can imagine, tenses for the blow, but the needle penetrates you unaffected as you feel it ripping through layers of skin and muscle. HIV wasn't something Christo had been old enough to think about before then. Now it was always on his mind. Christo didn't know what had happened to the addicts, but a short time later they had disappeared. He knew they weren't worried about the police, as it had been his word against theirs. Darkness was gathering when Christo arrived home. New LED streetlights evaporating darkness without delay as the sun dipped. Homemade spag bog enticed Christo towards the dining room, where his father sat reading today's news. Christo smiled to himself. His father's slinky was never far from him. Even now he read, he could hear it under the table. Luke winked at his boy without losing his place in an in-depth article on plague. Lisa brought out the cutlery, setting the table. "Hey honey, how's your day?" Christo's mother's voice like a melody from a song. Lisa was always brimming with smiles. "It was fine. When's tea ready?" "I'm so hungry," Chris exclaimed. "Not far off now, Pumpkin." Lisa gave Christo a kiss on the head as she walked past. "Still can't get Dad away from the slinky, Mum." "I'm not sure what you mean," Luke interrupted. His hands were both above the table now. The noise was gone. The family ate dinner, laughed, joked, and even sang a little as they always had. It was Friday, which meant movie night. Christo was usually allowed one movie before bed. Tonight, however, an exception had been made for a comedy classic the whole family enjoyed. This later movie didn't start until 9:30. Christo was exhausted. He'd had a full day, and his HIV alone seemed to be exhausting. Christo fell asleep before the late movie finished. Luke and Lisa let him sleep as he still looked just like an adorable baby boy to them. Around 1 in the morning, a chill crawled into the house through an ajar window. Christo stirred as it brushed his face. Dad was playing with his slinkies again. Christo thought he should get to his room, where it was quiet and comfortable. Better say goodnight to Dad. He yawned sleepily, heading to his noisy old man. Christo's mind was full of sleep, still half in a bizarre dream he'd had of surfing to school on a tidal wave. "Gonna have to learn to surf," he mumbled to himself. "That's odd," Christo thought, becoming aware he was in his basement without light. Absent-mindedly, he reached out, flicking the switch. A ruler away, just 30 centimeters from Christo's face, stood Ben. Thought recognition didn't click at first. Ben probably wasn't at fault here, as his eyes had been dyed, judging by the swirling colours, and needle marks covering a third of each bleeding ball. Christo and Ben stood frozen. "Ben?" murmured Christo. Ben may have replied, as the metal slinky that had been screwed into his top jaw bobbed as his head moved slightly. All Ben's teeth had been messily removed. Christo in shock worked his mouth as he looked Ben over, finding that the fishhooks held Ben standing by his skull. Ben's joints had been replaced with short, strong slinkies. Ben no longer had shoulders connecting his arms or elbows. Small, slender slinkies had even replaced his finger joints. It was apparent from the smell and black-yellow putrefaction on Ben's shoulders that he was being eaten by gangrene. His arms, legs and hands were all rotting as one would expect. Christo vomited over his once attacker, falling back against the wall. A cassette was stuck on repeat. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, please let me die. Please, I'll kill myself, I'll do anything. Make it stop. I'm begging, I'm begging. Chris realized Ben was staring at a mural of his teeth and joints surrounding his lower jaw. Care had been made to keep the flesh from being damaged as it rotted evenly. Christo, Lisa's voice soothed the boy's ears. Darling, are you okay? Lisa hurried down the stairs to her son. What has Dad done? Christo whispered, his eyes brimming with tears. Your dad? Nothing lately. He just sits around with his computer pretending to work. Lisa's answer was light-hearted, natural. Then her face was level, feeling gone. I did this, Chrissy. Doesn't it make you happy? What about Ray? Why is the cassette on repeat? Am I dreaming? Ben's jaw slinky bobbed uncontrollably as he convulsed for a little. Blank, punctured eyes swirling in ink. His eyelids seemed to have been trimmed back. Christo, have a hot chocolate. Relax. Luke, his father, apparated, handing him a mug. We saved Ray for you, if you want. End the music. Well, he repeated himself that much. Thought we give it back to him. I mean, he's a bad kid, so we took away his toys. Luke calmly gestured to the mural. Christo gulped, taking the hot chocolate, and spoke, relief evident in his voice. Thank God. I love you both so much. I thought this was a joke. When do I get Ray? Oh, he'll keep till morning, said his mother, her jovial voice always lighting her family's hearts. It's very late, and you should be asleep, young man. That night, the Caedes slept like babies.